We have built our entire moral framework around the idea that animals suffer, but plants do not. Therefore, we eat plants every single day. In fact, the average person consumes around 2,000 different plants every year. Many people who follow vegan or plant-based diets eat even more. For them, and for millions of others trying to reduce animal suffering, plants are the foundation of their ethics and their meals. If a cow feels pain, we can choose to eat plants. But if the wheat in your bread, the soy in your burger, and the apple in your hand are all self-aware organisms capable of experiencing pain and existential stress, then there is no clean escape. That's why we haven't fully accepted that plants might feel pain. In 2018, researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison engineered a breakthrough. They created plants that glow under a specific type of fluorescent light whenever their cells experience stress. For decades, we believed that if you tear a leaf off a plant, the injury stays local. But when these scientists cut a single leaf with a pair of scissors, they observed something strange unfold in real time. The moment the leaf was wounded, a massive wave of calcium ions surged away from the injury site, racing through the plant's vascular system at a speed of 1 millimeter per second. Within 2 minutes, the entire plant was glowing with metabolic panic. This tracking system relies on a neurotransmitter called glutamate. If that name sounds familiar, it's because it is the exact same chemical your own body uses to send pain signals from an injured limb straight to your brain. Plants are using human-like pain messaging infrastructure. And as far as we can tell, it serves the exact same purpose: to warn the rest of the organism that it is under siege. But knowing a plant responds to damage is not the same as proving it feels. After all, a smartphone responds when you touch the screen, but it doesn't feel anything. To understand if a plant experiences a version of pain, you have to look at what it does before the damage even happens. The plant stops moving. Its electrical signals flatline. It completely loses its ability to sense the outside world. If you trap it in a glass jar and cut its leaves, the calcium wave doesn't trigger. The glutamate doesn't fire. Anesthetics only work on organisms with a conscious mechanism to shut down. By definition, you cannot anesthetize an inanimate object. You cannot put a rock under anesthesia, but you can put a plant under. If plants possess the chemicals for pain, the acoustic senses to hear predators, and the capacity to be knocked unconscious, why do we refuse to call it pain? At the University of Missouri, scientists played an audio recording to a small flowering plant called Arabidopsis. The recording was simple: the microscopic sound of a caterpillar chewing on a leaf. The plant had no physical contact with the caterpillar. It was only exposed to the acoustic vibrations. Yet, the moment it heard the chewing sounds, its cellular chemistry shifted. It immediately flooded its leaves with mustard oils and glucosinolates, bitter, toxic chemical defenses designed to poison the insect. When they played sounds of wind or non-threatening insects, the plant did nothing. It could specifically identify the sound of its own execution. This means plants aren't just reacting like automated machines. They are actively monitoring their environment, evaluating threats, and deploying targeted chemical weapons to survive. But it gets genuinely strange when we look at how plants protect each other. When a tomato plant is attacked by a pest, it doesn't just defend itself. It releases volatile organic compounds into the air, invisible chemical distress signals. Neighboring tomato plants detect these airborne warnings through their pores. Within minutes, before a single insect has touched them, the neighboring plants begin pumping toxins into their own leaves, preemptively arming themselves against the coming invasion. Underneath the soil, plants use an interconnected web of fungal threads known as the mycorrhizal network, or the wood wide web. Through this underground internet, trees and plants route nutrients to dying neighbors and send rapid-fire electrical warnings about local predators. Every piece of modern botany tells us the same thing. Plants possess a decentralized intelligence. They don't need a centralized brain because their entire body is a brain. But if you think passive defense is the limit of their intelligence, the mystery becomes far more calculated. When a tobacco plant or a cornstalk is chewed on by a caterpillar, it doesn't just flood its leaves with bitter toxins. It performs a terrifyingly precise calculation. By analyzing the specific chemistry of the caterpillar's saliva, the plant can identify the exact species of insect eating it. Once it knows its enemy, the plant secretes a highly specific airborne chemical cocktail. These chemicals travel through the wind, acting as an active distress beacon for parasitic wasps. The wasps smell the SOS, trace it back to the exact leaf under attack, and swoop in. But they don't eat the caterpillar. Instead, the wasps inject their eggs inside the living caterpillar. As the wasp larvae hatch, they devour the caterpillar from the inside out, slowly neutralizing the threat while the plant watches. Think about the sheer complexity of that reaction. A supposedly brainless organism detects a physical trauma, identifies the predator, remembers the biological enemy of that predator, and synthesizes a specific chemical perfume to summon an airborne airstrike. This isn't a passive reflex. It is a calculated, multi-species counteroffensive, and it forces us to confront a deeply unsettling reality. If plants are capable of executing strategic warfare involving the manipulation of other animal species, how can we still convince ourselves that they are completely blind to their own destruction? How can an organism be intelligent enough to coordinate an assassination, but too simple to realize it's being eaten alive? The clearest proof that we completely misunderstand plant consciousness is how they react to human medical drugs. If you expose a sensitive plant like a Mimosa pudica to diethyl ether or chloroform, the exact same anesthetics used to knock out human patients before surgery, something extraordinary happens. Because admitting that plants feel forces us into a terrifying philosophical corner. We therefore assume that our way of experiencing the world is the only way to experience reality. Plants don't feel human pain, they don't cry tears, and they don't have thoughts. But they experience a deep, systemic, cellular trauma that mirrors our own suffering in ways that should make us deeply uncomfortable. We draw a line between animals and plants, not because the science isn't clear, but because our sanity depends on it. We have to believe they don't care, because if we don't, the simple act of eating becomes a moral minefield. Tonight, when you sit down to dinner, the vegetables on your plate will have spent their final hours alive, actively processing their environment. The grains in your food will have communicated with their neighbors through underground networks. The fruits you slice will have fired electrical pulses across their stems to signal that they were being breached. And a complex, decentralized form of life, something that millions of years of evolution has perfected to survive, will have been extinguished. To keep you alive, to keep you human, to fuel your tomorrow. Then one day, when you die, the cycle will reverse. Plants will eat you. The same living systems you consumed your whole life will eventually consume you in return. We eat them. They eat us. In the end, the line between eater and eaten completely disappears. That might be the strangest part of all.